7 since the Board of Supervisors. At 9, that probably, so I'm not sure that would be better.
Probably not.
It's hard to get, it's hard to talk about.
We had an
I thought the
all-day,
public stuff was boring.
Boring too. Yes.
all-day seminar,
I worked really hard on livening those things up. Thank you.
Yeah, what point does
all-day seminar.
we go over the line into a denial of due process?
I'm sure there's a boundary.
Yeah, somewhere.
We should push and see.
It's 9 o'clock, okay.
Hi, everybody.
She said, "This is the worst I've ever seen." Put her to sleep.
Probably would have on the videos for the bar exam.
You guys have seen the current issue.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the December 16th, 2013 Assessment Appeals Board for Tulare County. Present today, myself, George Zunian, as chairman, and on the board is going to be Lance Morris and Glenn Fowler. William McKinley will be our alternate for the day. Moving to agenda item number 1, board members, any comments from any of the board members? Staff.
I'm going to take a moment of privilege. My daughter's a senior in high school, and she just found out she got into Cal Poly, so I'm all excited.
And any comments from the assessor?
Just some mild news. I'm talking to the clerk this morning. It sounds like the official filings for this year are about 50% of what they were last year. So we may be working
Which
on
is roughly about how many?
about 400, roughly.
Okay.
So, yeah, good news for us.
Yeah, I think it was 2007, it was like 3,000.
Well, we had them up to 3,800. There was one year about 3 or 4 years back.
I think it was 2008.
Yeah.
Actually went up even more. A lot of them ended up being withdrawn because the assessor did such a good job of the Prop 8, evals for the single family.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2, BJ's Express Market, Inc. Anyone hear from them? And can
They
you
aren't-
give us an update there?
Yeah, they aren't here. I have a handout, basically on that one, just to refresh us. We had had the hearing, but when you looked at the audit results, there was some items that there was a concern there might be a duplication. So we've gone ahead and removed anything that may have been deemed a duplicate. So anything that was marked machinery and equipment that wasn't identified specifically, we took that out and have reduced the values.
So is it going to be a withdrawal or?
No,
Still.
it was a continuance, I believe.
No, well, we
The
had,
board had ordered us to do that.
you had ended the hearing. But when you reviewed the materials in closed session, you felt like there were some potential discrepancies and that because the applicant had complained about it looking like there were duplications.
Right.
And so you asked the assessor to come back with additional information on that, and so they would like to submit that.
Okay, so in other words, the auditor is going to submit the changes?
Right, and then you're going to go back to deliberating.
Okay, very good. So if that's the case, why don't you go ahead and present your findings?
Okay. I think I have too many. Okay, they're on the calendar as one item, but they're actually two different corporations, so I kind of prepared them separately. The first one is, the address is at 700 South Demery Street. And basically, since we already had the hearing, I just quickly broke down the prior roll value, which had trade fixtures at $332,261 and personal property at $40,484, with a total assessed value at $372,745. And then the new assessed value, removing anything that was deemed a duplicate, takes trade fixtures to $297,164 and personal property to $21,525, with a total of $318,689. And then my summarization of facts is, as directed by the Assessment Appeals Board on November 18th, the assessor has removed any equipment that may have been deemed a duplicate within the previously submitted work papers. The result is a value reduction of $54,056. The revised assessed value for 2009 roll year is $318,689 as detailed above. And then I included the copy of the details.
Now, this is for 700 South Demery?
That's correct.
Where's the other one? Oh, okay,
I
that's
just did them separate
another
since they're
handout.
separate corporations.
Fine. Any questions from any of the panel members? Okay, go ahead.
Here, I have another handout, please. Second one is for BJ's Express Market number 2. It's located at 5232 West Walnut Avenue. The trade fixtures previously were at $366,952 and personal property at $84,854 for a total assessed value of $451,806. The new assessed value with the reduction and removal of the machinery and equipment, labeled equipment, is trade fixtures at $305,410 and personal property at $64,902 with a total assessed value of $373,112. It's the same thing as directed by the board. The assessor has removed the equipment that may have been deemed a duplicate within the previously submitted work papers. The result is a value reduction at this location of $81,494. The revised assessed value for 2009 roll year is $370,312 as detailed above.
Okay, this is a continuation of a previous hearing.
Well, you had closed the hearing,
We closed it, that's correct. Just-
you were just asking for clarification
And
from the
they have just
assessor.
given us that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have any other discussion from the board? Do I hear a motion to accept the assessor's calculations, new assessment value?
Move that we accept the,
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that you're an alternate today.
not on
But
this,
he was on the
Not on
previous.
this one. He
On
heard
this
it.
panel.
he heard
He's a
this.
panel,
Heard the,
yeah.
heard
Go
his
ahead,
previous
I
one.
apologize. Go ahead.
on the item before us, I move we accept the explanation presented by the assessor.
There a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay,
I'm sorry, can I
Go
make
ahead.
a comment? Just thank you. Part of the reason we needed clarification was that the original presentation didn't break it down between the trade fixtures and the personal property, and we need to report it to the tax collector exactly as broken down on the roll. So thank you for remembering to do that on the revised one. And keep it up.
okay, Sun Tree is similar. It's been,
Well, that one you are reopening.
we're going to reopen this
Yeah.
one. Okay. Is there anybody here from Sun Tree? Would you step forward? If you could be sworn in along with the assessor?
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before the Assessment Appeals Board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name for the record.
Michael Horowitz.
If you could give us a little summary as to what's happened in the past from your perspective?
Okay, as you may or may not recall, I was here in October. Suntree had moved out of Tulare County at the end of 2010, but we lagged some of our assets, obviously, that moved into 2011. I came out, obviously, to bring documentation for the October board meeting supporting that move, a lot of the assets that were already gone on their way to Phoenix. I thank the board because they accepted that. The assessor reevaluated what was remaining either in trailers on the property or actually physically in the building. What I'm coming back today for is the useful life of the assets that were remaining. I've been trying since I received the letter on the new valuation to get an idea of where they came up with useful life, and actually I have, excuse me. It appears the assessor's office valued most of the remaining property at 10 to 15 years. And I tried, I dealt with Amira Padilla from the Tulare County Assessor's Office to get an understanding of why, since in my experience and 30-plus years experience, I've never seen assets valued for that length of time. I did attach email correspondence from Myra. She basically referred me to the State Board of Equalization because either she couldn't answer the question or she wanted the State Board to answer it. I tried a number of times to get a hold of someone in the board that would give me an answer, and I've been unsuccessful. So, which is one of the reasons why I'm here. The next letter I received from our outside CPA accounting firm and tax consultant supporting my belief that the majority of the assets should be valued from 5 to 7 years in accordance with FASB and generally accepted accounting principles and the Internal Revenue Service and my 30 years of experience. So the 10 to 15 years appears to me somewhat arbitrary and for no other reason than to increase the value of the assets, therefore the value of the assessment to the county. That's why I'm here requesting that you review that, and at the end of the day, I would like you to direct the assessor's office to reevaluate the assets at the lower life.
If I'm not mistaken, the assessed value was around $1.4 million of what was remaining.
I think it was 900-some thousand, if
It
I'm
was,
not
it was a
mistaken.
little lower than that. It's indicated on the docket as 974,000.
That sounds
plus.
about right.
Okay. And then you're asking the assessor to reassess those remaining items based upon the useful life being
Well, the
less?
900,000 is based on the life that the assessor came up with for 10 to 15 years.
Oh, and what's your calculation then? Do you have
Well,
any idea?
I didn't actually, I lost, there was no time for me to do that final calculation, but it would probably be somewhere in the $2 to $3 million area, because they're actually valuing assets that were put into production in 1998, which to me has no basis in accounting.
Okay. Any questions from board members? Do we have a response from the assessor?
Yes. I didn't actually realize that the hearing was going to be reopened. I thought it was similar to the BJ's where we'd already been directed by the board to basically find out what equipment was in Tulare County on lien date and then apply the factor tables and come up with a new value.
I'm sorry.
But-
I thought I had put that in the letter after the November hearing that we would give the applicant the opportunity to reopen because they didn't have the chance to challenge those new values yet.
Okay.
If
I
you
mean,
need
that's fine. I
If you
just
need a
didn't know
continuance to
exactly.
respond, we can,
No,
we can talk
I'm
to
going to
the
go
board
ahead and
about
respond.
that.
It's just in my write-up, I didn't actually address these types of issues because I was focused on,
Well, if
the original
if either
order.
party feel, and we did say that if it wasn't convenient for the applicant, I mean, we could postpone the reopening. So if you need that too,
well, I
we
think
can.
the applicant's traveling from Arizona, so I'd like to attempt to go forward with it if that's okay.
Get that as well.
Sure.
So anyway, I've gone ahead and given the breakdown. The applicant asked for a reduction of the roll value to $1.6 million. Based on the information that he provided of what was left in Tulare County on lien date, it's coming out actually to $974,893, which is significantly less than what was requested on the application. We did not actually have backup documentation to prove what was in Tulare County on lien date. We basically took what was provided to us from the applicant and applied the factor tables on that. The factor tables are issued by the state of California. We're required by law to apply those factor tables. The board cannot issue factor tables or recreate the factor tables. They don't have jurisdiction in that area. The factor tables are issued to create uniformity throughout the state of California, and we have guidelines and procedures that we have to follow as far as that. So that's why you were directed to contact the state if you want to change in the factor tables. For packing house equipment, most warehouse equipment, it is valued at a 15-year life, and that's a state directive. It's an industrial 15, that's what we're given. Forklifts, things like that, have a 10-year life, so shorter. Security equipment, 10-year life. The thing is, we cannot say, okay, your company has a lesser life than another comparable company. We can't make those determinations because the factor tables are throughout the whole state, and those are developed every year by the state of California using Marshall and Swift guides and other valuation manuals that they look at. They look at the lives of equipment throughout the whole state on the different industries and come up with what the lives should be. So that's kind of why the lives that were applied to your equipment, we don't have any leeway with that.
That's what I was requesting from your office, and I never received. I don't have anything from the state indicating that. Are you suggesting my battle is now with the Board of Equalization in Sacramento?
Well, to get factor codes changed, that would be where it was at.
Okay. If you would have supplied me with the state factor codes, and I probably could have avoided actually even coming out here. All I've got was email correspondence from your office and indication that this is what it is, and please contact the State Board of Equalization. Not even a phone number, no direction of who to talk to.
We did give you the factor tables off our website. We gave you the link to get to the factor tables.
From 1 year out to 50 years. That didn't mean anything to me. I immediately went to that, and I assumed it was the 5 and 7 years before Myra came back and said, no, it's 10 to 15 years. So that's all I had to deal with. So I understand what you gave me, but it doesn't indicate that our particular industry or our particular company should be set at 10 to 15 years for our assets.
That's been determined by the state of California, not by Tulare County.
I understand that. I understand what you're saying to me, but I don't have any documentation to prove that.
I'm kind of curious. I have a question. Is the rates on all of these categories the same as the state or federal depreciation regulations, or are they different?
Well, you're talking about income tax depreciation?
Yes.
It's going to be different from that. Property tax and income tax are two different ball games. Income tax is more taking an asset and expensing it over a period of time so that you aren't hitting it all in 1 year.
In effect, the assessor makes that determination in the sense that on the tax return, there are years of purchase, but the useful life is determined by the assessor through their analysis.
No, it's determined by the state of California.
No. I mean from the state rules.
Correct.
But as far as the applicant is concerned, that's a calculation that's done after the tax return is filed.
After the personal property statement.
Is filed.
Not the income. It has nothing to do with
Right.
the income tax returns.
So basically, if that's the case, then I'm going to ask the board, I think that we're going to have to agree with the assessor that if that is the case, then your argument on useful life is with the State Board of Equalization.
Okay, what I don't get is how you get from the documentation you did give me, which gave me a number of useful lives and categories, the determination of why SunTree or my particular industry was 10 to 15 and not 5 and 7. All I received was columns of numbers and percentage. That I don't have. So I don't know who makes that determination. Is it the state said that SunTree is now 10 to 15?
They aren't saying SunTree specifically, but they are saying that type of industry is a 15-year life,
Is there some
basically.
kind of documentation that I can?
Yeah, those factor
Well,
tables.
I got people to answer to as well. I don't want to keep coming back here, and I don't want to go to Sacramento.
understand.
You know,
yeah.
if I have something to present to my boss, I can show him and said, okay, we're stuck, that's it.
Which handbook is that in?
It's on our website. It's the factor tables, and the thing is, on the front, I can go over it with you. You know, if you want to talk on the phone or something to walk you through exactly what you need to look at. But on the front 2 pages, I believe 2 to 3 pages, it tells the industry and the code. The industry and the code, and then you'll have the table breakdown.
The code refers to the table that's got anywhere from 1 to 50 years.
But isn't there a whole assessor's handbook that goes on for pages on how you decide what type of equipment goes in which set of tables?
There is a handbook. It's called the 581 handbook, and that does have the tables.
So maybe that's, you know,
It's
because I thought it had
basically
more
the same
details in
thing.
words for how you, because that seems to be his question is, how do you decide which category forklifts go in? And
Well, it specifically will say forklifts, and then I'll say 10-year life. And then you can go to the table and see how old your forklift is and see the percentage that you need to
Right.
apply.
right.
So we're kind of talking about 2 different things. You can see the life really quickly on the front or second page or whatever in alphabetical order. But to see the breakdown, and if you actually want the percentage for the year, you have to go back into the detail of those tables.
Okay. Well, any discussion by the board? Any additional discussion?
And this panel is also McKinley, Morrison, Azunian.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's something that's beyond our control. It's not something that we can change. That was my understanding as well. The tax and gap and always seems to differ from property tax valuation and the useful lives. And if you're in this industry, this is your piece of equipment. This, when you bought it, this is your percentage that you're at now.
Okay.
And it's determined by the state. So it just trickles down from there.
You're indicating if you go over that with me, the booklet over the phone, I'll be able to follow it?
Actually, Mr. Kokendorfer has it on his iPad, so I can go over it with you right after the hearing, if you'd like.
Actually, no, I need to catch a plane.
I can right after you're done, if you'd like.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Very helpful, so.
Okay, so if we're continued and we're going to refer you back to
Well, no, I think you're making a decision.
that's exactly what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Is we're going to be making a decision, and then if you want to work that out with the state board on future years, that's up to you.
Up to me.
Okay? So do I hear a motion regarding agenda item number 3? Now, we've had a preliminary on this already, correct?
You've tentatively found in favor of the assessor on the new total.
Right.
The opportunity for the applicant to present evidence to show why that was wrong.
Right. So at this point, if we have a decision to rule from the bench, or we want to take it under advisement, it's up to the board. Okay, go ahead.
I move that in reference to Suntree LLC, application number 2011-00329, that we reaffirm our original decision to accept the assessor's valuation, and that further we accept the new breakdown between fixtures and personal property on this matter. That's a total value of $974,893.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We wish you the best.
Thank you.
Okay, going to agenda item number 4, Seamus Carley Investments. Anyone here from them? And
Mr. Chairman, if it helps, so we can address the actual applicants that are here. Agenda item number 19 and 20 are present. The remaining portion of the confirmed hearings for this morning, there has either been some type of resolution or no response, and we can maybe go over that after we optimize the taxpayers' time.
okay, but you don't have anything on Seamus as far as what's going on?
Correct. Seamus was actually a indicated verbal withdrawal, but there was never a formal withdrawal filed, so eventually it will go into, I think, a pool with a number of those types of responses to the assessor's office.
So in this particular case, then, would that be denied for non-appearance?
When we get to that point, if they don't show up later, yeah.
Okay, then, the next agenda item that someone is here is 19 and 20, George and Patricia Connell-Lecton. If you would state your name and have the assessor swear you in, as well as read your application into the record.
Okay. My name is George Congleton.
Raise your right hand.
I'd also like to have Don Fulbright sworn in. He's been involved with the project, and he knows the values here in Visalia as well. So,
Mr. Congleton, is Mr. Fulbright one of your authorized agents?
If he's here in person, he can do anything he wants.
no, but I understood in talking to the office that
Mr. Grunwald, are you sure
If I was
he doesn't
here, you
have to
would
have
need to
an
be
signed
sworn in.
authorization in order to represent the applicant?
If he is here without the applicant, yes. But if the applicant is here in person, the applicant can bring in anybody they want, because obviously there's no need for a written authorization in the physical presence of the applicant. But you're correct. If we got a new person showing up, agent that wasn't on the paperwork, then we would require a written authorization from the applicant.
Okay.
Okay, clerk would like to proceed.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before the Assessment Appeals Board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name for the record.
George Congleton.
I do as well. Don Fulbright, Castlewood Partners, Inc., president of.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to give me more detail on that when we're done, but I'll let you go ahead.
All right, I do. Corey Weaver, Tulare County Assessor's Office.
I do. Tim Kokendorfer, Tulare County Assessor's Office.
Okay, and if you'd like to give us a short summary
I'm
as to
sorry,
what...
for my notes, I'd like to get Mr. Fulbright, F-U-L-L,
F-U-L-B-R-I-G-H-T.
and some kind of title or,
I'm the president of Castlewood Partners, which originally owned the subject property.
and the, so that would be the former owner rather than...
Yeah, I deeded in lieu to George Congleton and his group when I couldn't pay him.
Okay. Rather than as a, representative or whatever, you're a witness.
I've been in touch with the assessor's office as well over this issue.
Okay, thank you.
So if you could give us a short summary of what this is about?
The property in question, I guess I should give you the...
Yeah, let's give him that.
And are we hearing, there's two separate agenda items. Are we hearing them together?
I believe so.
One of them is George and Patricia, and the other one is just George.
Actually, the properties are all owned by the same, there's a group of us of 10 people.
Total of 5 properties.
Those five APNs.
They're all on the hearing this morning.
Okay?
10 minutes apart.
The
So
parcels,
might as well hear them all at once.
the parcels are all in the southeast quadrant of Visalia. One, the two which we call the west are on the west side of Ben Maddox and K Road, and the three that referred to as the east are on the southeast corner of K Road and Ben Maddox.
Okay, continue.
Okay, just to give a little history, can we... The property in question this morning involves 5 parcels it says here in the southwest quadrant. It's actually the southeast quadrant of Visalia. Going through this presentation last night, I found a couple other errors, so I'm going to have to fire my secretary. The only problem is I'm the secretary. So anyway, there's two, like I said, there's two parcels on the west southwest corner, APN 126-120065 and 120-066. Actually, yeah, Don, that's good. Okay, no, they can read that, so just go ahead and go to 4. The property was sold to Castlewood Partners in 2005, which was near the top of the real estate market at that time. The sales value for the west, the two parcels on the west, was $857,586, and on the east it was $700,000, which combined was an average of about $85,000 an acre.
Really what that was is not what it said. Well, that's what you sold it to me for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. The current property owners are the same individuals that carried the notes with Castlewood Partners. With the decline of the real estate market, a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which Don's already mentioned, was done in December 2009. So it was not a sale, it was actually we just took the property back. Besides getting the property back, we ended up paying property taxes as well, so he owes me a lot. The records show a sale in July of 2010, and what that actually was, it was a correction of the percentages of ownership between me and two other owners of the note. That was Anna Lowry and Mildred Wu.
So it was actually a correctory deed?
Correct, yes. Castlewood Partners received approval
Thank
for
you.
a tentative map
Corey Weaver, nice to meet you.
before they did the deed in lieu. They had a tentative map, both the east and west, which I believe is now expired. Castlewood intended to develop a high-density project for the entire 18 acres. The product would have been a mixture of single-family and duplexes. The property will now have to be marketed, I believe, since it's expired, would have to be marketed strictly as R2 raw land. The east and west, the two parcels on the west could be
I'm sorry,
sold
Mr.
separately.
Congleton, it would be more helpful for the board members who really can't see that PowerPoint if you're going to use a laser. If you do it up there, the board members will be able to see it better, yeah.
So the two parcels in the west actually could be sold individually, but I think any developer would probably want the entire 11 acres. And the three parcels on the east
Are actually 4 parcels.
yeah, what you see here is actually 4 parcels. This area right here is still owned by Castlewood Partners.
It's a ponding basin.
And I think on the map, page 4 of my presentation, it actually shows the breakdown between the because of the unusual configuration, as you can see from the maps, I believe all 3, actually including Castlewood's parcel here, all 4 would have to be sold and developed as one project. It's highly doubtful if the city would allow access off of Van Maddox, so if you look at Castlewood's proposed development, it came off of the Montford here, and over here it came off of Taylor. Currently, the parcels cannot be developed because of the existing temporary storm drain on the Castlewood portion and 8 feet of dirt that's stacked on our property. Consequently, the east is not saleable. Eventually, it will require $80,000 to $100,000 to put it into a marketable condition as bare land. The developer would probably discount the purchase price by that amount. The City of Visalia stated in a letter dated December 13th, 2013, the temporary basin may be released upon completion of the pump station, which is numerous years from. That's Exhibit O in the presentation. So, again, here's the ponding basin, and that 8 feet of dirt is all stacked in this area.
It's the spoil. In other words, once we excavated the ponding basin in 1995,
Can you move closer to the mic when you're talking? Thank you.
excavated this, got a thing here?
Yeah.
Well, we excavated this area here. Doesn't show up, by the way, on this very well, but there's a ponding basin that's about 18 feet deep. All this dirt that came out of this ponding basin is stored on this parcel, spoils. When you take out, it's 20,000 yards. And so there's approximately 20,000 yards, plus we needed about an extra 10, so when we developed these areas in here, we stored some more dirt on this property. So you need about 30,000 yards to go back in. And where Mr. Congleton is trying to indicate the cost of that is if you put it back in at $3 a yard, pick it up, put it back in the hole, treat it, it's $3 at $3 a yard, it'd be $90,000. Or if it's $4, you went somewhere between 3 and 4 is probably what it's going to cost. So you're looking at $90,000 to $120,000 to backfill that hole. The city has used this ponding basin since 1995, and there's over this way. In fact, I'll just we just handed this out. This again is the ponding basin that's in question. These are the 3 or 4 parcels right here that you notice in this odd-shaped parcel here. There's another pond that's a master city pond. It's a part of the master storm drain. All the water from this area is supposed to go to that pond. It's a pond park. The problem with it is it doesn't have all the capacity it needs. So the city is not letting us off the hook, per se, until they can put a pumping station. If you'll notice, there's a letter in the end of Mr. Congleton's presentation. When that pumping station goes in, it's a pressure line that they're going to offload the excess water to a creek up in the north. So we have no control. They've been trying to get Fish and Game permits to do that for the last 3 years, as far as I know. But it indicates this now acts as a surplus. As this fills up, static pressure, the line goes in, and you'll end up with 2-3 feet of water at the bottom of that. And at one point, it was more needed before the city got this in. But this property is difficult to sell with this hole on it or the dirt. That's what he's trying to say.
And how many acres is that piece usable without the pond?
That is a total of...
There's 3 parcels there, and it's roughly just under 7 acres.
Yeah, 7.04 acres.
Yeah. Now, in the assessors present, or what they presented to us, is they want an assessment of $70,000 an acre. I have other ponding basins in the city of Visalia, and I have a 0 assessment. I still get dinged for weeds and that sort of thing, but I get a 0 assessment. So I think it's somewhere between 0 and 70 is what we're talking. There's no way it should be $70,000.
So what is
my little sector here, my little corner, that little corner there? That's my assessment on that is $35,000 an acre. That's too high. It's a hole that I can't use. But that's not working.
But the remaining portion, what value are you putting on it? The 7 acres?
What are we putting on it?
Yes.
I think Mr. Congleton has indicated he'd live with 18,000 an acre.
Okay.
Okay. I question that's what has any value until we get released.
To clarify, is
The
Mr.
parcel-
Fulbright's ponding basin under question today, or is that not part of this case? Because
Well, the ponding basin, if I understand what you're saying, is needed for the eventual city approval?
correct,
We can't-
but the
we
parcels,
remove it.
but the parcels filed on were not the ponding basin.
It's not in
so-
question, though.
Well, that's not
So
true.
the value of
So
Mr.
it comes down to what's the usable area?
That's not true. The pond itself straddles the property line. It's not just on my parcel. It goes on the other parcel as well. And there's 8 feet of dirt there.
What's the
That you
zoning?
can't do. I mean, you drive by, you look over, you can't.
What's the zoning on this parcel?
It's RM2.
Which would require a pond.
Pardon me?
It would require a pond to develop.
No, we had to put the pond in to develop. I bought 100 acres there between Caldwell
I see.
and K Road. As a condition for our putting in our first phase, we had to put that ponding basin in. There was no ponding.
Okay,
facility in the area.
excluding the ponding basin, the remainder of the use of the property, highest and best use, you are saying has a value of about 18,000 an
I'm
acre.
saying zero. Mr. Coughlin is saying 18,000.
18,000 an acre.
Actually, what we're going to show is that there have been sales made of RM2 property in the area that went at $18,000 per acre.
Yeah, that's
Fine.
what we're coming up with.
Go ahead and proceed.
This brings us to, what is the value of these 5 parcels in 2009, 10, 11, and 12, which is what the appeal is for today.
Which is 3 parcels that are impacted by this ponding basement and spoils, and the 2 parcels on the west. Yes. The west has a different set of circumstances.
Okay, what do we just press up
That's right, just hit that.
or down? Okay, this just is another view. But it shows you how difficult it would be to, I think the assessor's office is saying because these are two plus acres each, that they could be sold as one, therefore they would have a higher value. But in our opinion, that this would be very difficult to develop as 1 2-acre parcel.
When we processed the map through the city, they were very restrictive as to allowing access out to Ben Maddox. So, and basically the K Road access is near the intersection of Ben Maddox and K Road, and they're absolute death on that. They won't allow that. It's too close. Only emergency access would be able to be out. So that only leaves one location. That's Monteverde. And if you'll see my example, it's the road that goes in crosses over the ponding basin.
Okay.
It's not absolutely impossible that someday, if all heck broke loose, we couldn't develop 2 acres, but it's not very easily.
Well,
The value of the property is really all together.
but down here again, if you looked at just this parcel by itself, and the city says, we will
Yeah.
not give you access from Ben Maddox, it would be impossible to develop this because
It's true.
by itself, because there's no access. In other words, if you looked at all 3 or 4 parcels together, you could access either from Monteverde or from K Road, but that would require buying these 2 parcels together.
I don't want to speak for, jump ahead of Corey, but basically the east side, where the ponding basin is, or the spoils, the assessor's office has come back with 70,000 acre. The west side, the 2 parcels, the front on K Road, they've come back to us at 65,000 acre. That's why we're here. Okay?
Well, it's for both.
Yeah, for both.
The assessed value of both.
We don't agree with either one.
I think, I think the reason that the assessor's office is saying 70 on this and 65 on this is because these are smaller parcels.
It's also have a lot of road improvements already in. It's gross equals net. The other one, we're going to lose a substantial part of the west section because of the power lines and the right-of-way for K Road. And that becomes an issue when you look at the county provided us 3 sales that they found, which there's been some discussion about 90 days. They can only reach out 90 days. We're trying to get the base year fixed and every year since. We disagree with the base year. I deeded the property in lieu of foreclosure because I couldn't pay for it to George and his group December 22nd, 2009. I was very, and some of you may, I borrowed the money a certain way. I deeded it back exactly the way I borrowed it. That happened to be a little bit different than how they, amongst the group. So they did very small changes. They made some adjustments in a correct redeed 3 months later. As far as this, did you hand out this part? Did you hand that? So I deeded back. This shaded area is a 90-day window from the time I deeded it back to the group. There's like 10 members of the group. And 90 days before or 90 days after, we have not been able to find any sales. However, the assessor's office may have. But they're kind of hanging on to this 90 days around the correctory deed, and they've given us 3 examples. The first example is at the corner of...
I would just like to point out that we are required by state law to stay within that 90-day window.
Okay,
And just to clarify too,
we'll
Mr. Fulbright.
get to the assessor in a moment. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
But
Okay.
I wouldn't hurt, though, to remind the board that finding comps, of course, is an art. You can go backwards in time,
As far as we would.
any amount of time. It can be more than 90 days prior to the date that the assessor, that the parties are looking at. But it can only be 90 days forward from then.
Within the 90-day window of the actual deed, we're not aware of any comparable sales. Now, I have to hand it to the assessor's office. This is difficult. We're talking about land. After the collapse of real estate, September of 2008, subdivision land that are zoned for RM2, R1, R whatever, collapsed like the stock market. It had very little value, and there weren't a lot of sales. I owned numerous parcels, some of which I'm going to give as examples. I tried to sell in 2009. I tried to sell in 2010. I tried to sell in 2011. There are no buyers. I didn't make any headway at selling anything until 2012. So I'm thinking, okay, well, you can't look at it in 90 days, but somebody's got to have some common sense. There wasn't much going on in those periods, and the first first realistic benefit that I got out of sale was in 2012. And some of the property that I sold is very near to this. You can't look at the sale that I did in 2012 and say it must have been higher in 2009. I mean, it was cheap. The bottom of the market was 2009, 2010, and maybe it's come out a little bit. Today, I think it's a little bit higher, but certainly in 2009, it was at the floor. And there wasn't much activity, and that's probably why we're only getting 3 examples. The 3 examples we got, real quickly, from the assessor's office is 4.65 acres at the corner of Ferguson and Shirk Road. The parcel is on the northeast corner. We have a picture of it here. Okay. I want to point out the corner.
It's this part.
And the reason this is important, when I got the response back from the assessor's office saying that the properties are worth $115,000, $66,000, and $47,000, these are numbers that I did not experience in any of my efforts to sell any property. Any. I mean, it isn't close. So I said, I need to get involved here, look at the background of this, and see if I can figure out why. Either that or I gave my property away. I don't think that happened. Okay, so this first property is, you did point out? Okay.
I've never done this before, so procedure is Corey, are you supposed to give your case on the
Well, basically what it amounts to is we would like to hear your presentation, and at that point, then we're going to have the assessor give their presentation, and then we're going to be in between asking questions and trying to come to a summary.
So we'll just continue on.
They gave us 3 sales. This 4.65 acres
Which is right here.
is right there. Has curb and gutter on 2 sides. It's basically gross equals net. In other words, a 4.65 acres. In fact, when this property when we researched it and pulled it up on TitleWorks, the map at TitleWorks is 4.65. The map at Metroscan was 6.94. The difference between those 2 acreages was the fact that Metroscan wasn't reflecting that Ferguson had been built, nor were they reflecting that the 2 lanes across the Shirk Road. So this 4.65 acres was sold with those improvements in place. Curb and gutter, street, and we're talking about pretty good-sized roads here, some utilities, and I'd like to point out, this is there's like $12 or $15 million in public improvements in this very corner. This corner this is Shirk Road, this is Ferguson, this is the new fire station. I don't know if you've been in it or not. It's marvelous. I don't think fire stations actually add too much to our value, but it's certainly a nice corner. This park was recently completed. It's probably $1 million park next door to this subject property, and then across the street is slated a school. This line represents everything on this side represents the edge of commerce. This is the industrial park. This is where thousands of people work. So it's a darn good location. This is a good comp. I couldn't find anything else wrong. It did happen. I can tell you, I think it was an anomaly. I don't think it would happen again. The people that bought it, Otani was involved with Wes Isaac out of Reedley, multifamily builder. They had planned to build it. Immediately after they bought it, they cooled it. and Otani's end up with, it's for sale now, and I'll tell you what, it's up for sale for $800,000. So being up for sale.
Which is how much an acre?
They're trying to sell it by the door. They believe there's 60 doors there, 13,000 a door. It ain't gonna sell for that.
That's fine.
Okay. In fact, the closest comp to that would be, you'd have to go to Fresno, it'd be 7,500 a door. Okay. But it's a small parcel. Small parcels tend to sell for a little bit more. And if you're in the premium area, northwest areas, that's where everything's happening. It doesn't hurt to be next to a park and across the street from a
This picture is page 7 in my presentation.
The next one that we were given as a comp, we call comp sale 2. By the way, this timeline that I laid out, everything above has to do with the assessor's presentation, and there's labeled comp sale 1, comp sale 2, comp sale 3. Everything that we're involved with is below the line, and we used A, B, C, D to separate our sales so they wouldn't get confusing. On the next one is going to comp 2.
That's comp 2.
No, that's comp
You're
1.
right.
Comp 2 is at the corner of Goshen Avenue and Lover's Lane. Okay, this is Goshen. This is Lover's Lane. There's 2 parcels here. We agreed with the fact that it was sold. Lane Property sold it to KMC for, what was it? $700,000?
Yeah.
$700,000. It's R1 4.5. So the density is just a little bit less, but I haven't found whether it's R1, R45, R4, or RM2 to have much difference in value for the last 3 years. I haven't seen it. But this is R45. It was on 7/27/2010. There's 2 parcels that add up to 11.25 acres. That was presented to us as a comp for $66,667 an acre. When I looked into the situation, Blaine did sell it to KMC. KMC borrowed money from the Housing Authority, borrowed $700,000 to buy this. Pretty cozy relationship. To buy this. But it isn't necessarily apples. It's R45. I don't think that's really much different, but it had 3 houses on it at the time of sale. Now, currently, I think one of those houses has been torn down, and there's 2 houses there. So are we really looking at a comparable sale with selling 11 acres with 3 houses on it versus and using the gross value of it to say $66,000? If you backed out the houses off the land, I might tend to agree. You follow what I'm basically saying? So I don't think that is necessarily that good a comp. And I also want to point out it happened in 2010, and in 2013, KMC gave it back to the Housing Authority. There's a copy of the deed and a copy of the resolution for the board from the Housing Authority recognizing where KMC has said they can't use it for the next several years. In other words, these values that we have in our mind, those of us involved in real estate, aren't holding. They have 3 houses to rent or 2 houses to rent that they could have used to offset the holding costs for the taxes and to the payment, and they still gave it up and gave it back. So I don't know how much of a comparable sale that would be. Comp sale 3 is out in Shannon Ranch.
Page 9. Page 11.
This might be closer to reality here, this example. But it's another good area of a lot of activity. The property that was a total of, how many acres, George? Total of 51 acres, of which the assessor's office is representing to us that 38 acres of it is RM2, and 12 acres is R16. Okay?
And that works out to be
about 47,000.
47,000.
Yeah. So it was represented to us that their third comparable sale was about $47,000. Now, this is one of the parcels here. There's 2 parcels here, and then there's another parcel up here that's not on this slide. This one up here is alongside of this is Riggin Road, this is Vancouver Highway. This is the R1 piece. The R1 for single family. This is the R1 piece up here. This is R2, this is R2. This corner here is slated to be the Home Depot. In fact, they started and stopped it. You may be familiar with it. When the economy fell apart, Lowe's had just finished and just opened up, and they were trying to get fast on the trail and build their own comparable store, and then they thought better of it and stopped building in 2009. It may come back, but this corner will be a Home Depot probably and other supporting stores, but across the street, this is the Target Center. And Target's here, and then you've got several other stores, a grocery store. I want to say Ross. I'm not sure what it is, but this is a really neat center and great for the Northeast. I don't look at this as Northeast or North Central. Be North Central. So I think this is a good piece of property. Everything up in here is referred to as Shannon Ranch, and I'm missing the biggest asset. This asset up here is an 85-acre only sports park in the area. I'm talking about Visalia, Tulare, whatever. There's multiple soccer fields here on both sides. There's several baseball diamonds up here. There's a motocross. That's quite an asset to be living across or next to, or if you're going to build multifamily. Multifamily RM2 is 1 unit for 3,000 square feet, so you usually have, about 10 units the acre. So that's a pretty good sale. When we go to look at the deed, to verify this, there's no transfer tax on the deed. You can't see it. They try to keep it hidden. So then the next thing I do, I say, well, let me look it up. This happened, by the way, in 2010, right? So then I looked up a tax roll. I want to verify. I call around and see if I can find out what really happened. I don't know how they know what happened. Maybe they file a separate affidavit that says what they paid for it. But on the tax roll today, you go to the website of the tax collector's office, and this has is there a scale here? Is there a chart in here that shows that? Shows what the, is there a chart in here that shows, it's on the tax rolls at 23,000.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm looking for that. It's not on the tax rolls at 47,000. These parcels are on the tax roll at 23, and there's a chart in here I hope he has. We've done, George lives in Idaho. I live close, and we've been emailing back and forth trying to get this assembled. If it happened in 2010 for $47,000, why is it still on the tax roll? I want to be treated like Shannon Ranch is what I'm saying.
If you look at Exhibit M,
this is important to look at, so if we'll take a time to get to Exhibit M. Are we there?
Yeah.
Okay, there are 4 parcels that make up the sale of what we call Comp Sale 3, Shannon Ranch. Roughly 12 to 13 acres apiece. The first first one is RM2, the second one is RM1, and the rest of them are RM2. There's a thing here that I've called out on the third column that I'm calling out as MetroScan value. This is what MetroScan shows as the value of these properties. It happens to add up, by the way, to exactly what the sale that the assessor's office is telling us, $1,425,000. Okay? But if you go to the tax rolls, go over two more columns, the current tax roll works out to be $22,976, $22,990, $23,000, and $22,942. I thought I had a couple important factors here. Slow down here a little bit. So a sale occurs in 2010 that is represented to us about $47,000 3 years ago. Today it's still on the tax rolls at $22,000. Also, if this MetroScan interpretation of what happened actually happened, I think another thing that's important to point out is that the R1 values that are placed in this, which I don't know how official this is at 36,000 acre for R1. R2 is somewhere between 48 and 51. So roughly $13,000 is given as a premium over and above the values of R1. This is important because some of my comparable sales that I'm offering are R1. Some of them are R2. So this isn't the assessor's office, but if you add this up, it adds up to $1,425,000. Exactly the same number that they're representing as what occurred. I don't have, I'd like to hear what the assessor has to say as why it's still assessed at, 11, or about half that actually. So it's a premier piece of property. It's in a good spot. It's around a lot of activity. It's next to the only sports park in the whole area. Those are the three comparable sales. And none of these three happened within the 90-day of actually deeding the property back to Mr. Coggleton and his group. It's outside of that. It is within inside the window of his correctory deed, okay, where they tried to reassess things between them.
So what was the date of these three comps?
The date...
08?
No, these three comps are 2010. I deeded over December 22nd, 2009. Their first comp is April of 2010, outside the 90 days. Their second comp was July of 2010. And then this third comp that I'm looking at now happened in November of 2010.
Okay.
Okay? But you can see the proximity of the correctory deed. I think that's what they're hanging their hat on. This correctory deed is where George maybe moved 3% of his values, to really didn't happen after I gave it to him. It happened prior to the sale. I would not deed back the property in any other format than what I had borrowed the money. The people that lent me the money, when I deeded it back, I gave it exactly back to him, even though the ownership was slightly different. I said to him, you'll have to fix that when you get it. I'm just trying to get rid of it before I have more further problems. Because at that time, we weren't sure how bad it was going to be. Still bad. I mean, we haven't found it to be that much better. Okay, now, those are the three comparable sales. Roughly $105,000, $66,000 with three houses, and $47,000 with a tax roll that reflects $23,000. I'm not sure why that happens. We're here to find out how we can get that kind of treatment. It either didn't happen or because it's not close to the numbers I've got. Now, I'm jumping around here, but I'd like to call to your attention everything below the line. Those are sales that have occurred. Now, I'm actually a villain here. I don't want you to sit here and say we are buddies, but I am coming to his aid because I don't believe that those $105,000 or $66,000 or $47,000 values represent what I've been facing. I tried to sell property in 2009, give it away, 2010, 2011. Didn't have any activity. In fact, I did put one piece in escrow in 2010 later we sold for about 30% more, but it didn't go through. They came back, and after they tied it up for 60 days, came back and tried to cut it in half. So there really wasn't, I don't think, very good sales. I have had similar discussions with the assessor's office on other parcels that we own. In fact, we had a property in Tulare, and I gave the assessor's office these sales that I have on this sheet here that I'll go over with you. And they used that to reclock some property that we had in Tulare they said they confirmed that they found 2009 sales that represented what I said happened in 2012 that they could use to justify reclocking. I don't know why we can't reclock this, because it's the same darn problem. Well, let me go through the three sales. First of all, when you look at this map, these subject properties are right here. This is where the ponding basin is. The three properties that I have are within a 9-iron shot of this property. Now, I either gave it away or I sold it at the market. The first one I sold was Comp Sale A. And where's that in the booklet? Where's my blue summary? Page.
Where's A at?
Summary of what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Where is A at?
okay, hold on.
Yeah, get me there. A, if you look at this map, you can. It's marked A. Around here. It's on the corner of, so basically on Burke Street.
What was the sales price on that?
$12,000 an acre. 7.72 acres. And then there's a,
David Strummer.
Pardon me?
This is what you're talking about? Your comp aid.
No, I'm wanting my sales. Okay, $12,000 was $92,640. It's the first one on the top. Sale A. On this map, it's this property right here, the first one away. I sold it for $12,000 an acre, 7.72 acres, $12,000, $92,640. Sold the Blaine Ranches in whatever that says, 7/18/2012. This is R16 property, and it has a tentative map on it. I sold it cheap. Next year, or further down the road, these parcels here are roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parcels. If you turn this map over, turn it over, in the northeast part of town, I have a project called River Run Ranch. Nothing to do with these. I actually sold. I called out this one square here. You see this one square? I'm calling it Comp Sale B. The reason I pulled this out because I have a numerous examples here. Everything I sold about roughly all these parcels that were surrounding my subdivision. I kept the subdivision that's right here. The reason I call this out is because I think this is the most applicable. Is it's RM2, and I sold it for $18,000 an acre. If you see it, okay. So the rest of it was R1. I also sold property east of the power lines to roughly 13 parcels altogether, the 3 different buyers over a 45 different period. But it was Dites, Richard Dite, and then his son, and then another member of his family. It didn't all close at one time, but eventually they bought all of it. And this was the property in the city I sold for $18,000 an acre. The property in the county I sold for roughly 15, round numbers. Okay. It also, the property in the county is being recognized by the city as soon to be developed. It probably would have been if we didn't have a crash.
On the timeline of those last 2 sales, what is the timeline relevant to the application date?
The base date that I'm trying to help get reclocked is December 22nd, 2009.
So these are after that considerably.
Considerably. So are these. Nothing within there aren't any examples that have been presented to this board or to me that were in the 90 days. Okay? I'm going to cover that again, though. I'm going to cover that again.
Well, but if you can go backwards, unlimited backwards, those in 2009 would be the values in 2010, 2011, 2012 could be basis that those.
Yeah, but I think you're wanting to, you have a contention of the values in 2012, just like you have a contention of the values in 2000. Yeah.
We have all 4 years.
Yeah, you're trying to get the base year refigured and then redone all the way through. So then the next sale that we did was just this year, and it's Comp Sale C. Go back to the subject property. It's Comp Sale C, and up here it's 10.91 acres. We sold for $260,000, which represents $23,831 an acre. What does that say? R16,000. In other words, it's single family. That becomes important because, again, I pointed out on Comp Sale 3 that the county represented on Shannon Ranch, they have about a $13,000 premium. So it's possible that you extrapolate adding $13,000 to this number and come up with about $36,000. Happens to be what my pond is currently valued in, the property that I have. It's not part of your hearing, but it is where the ponding basin is currently appraised at about, on the tax roll, $36,000. The other property that I sold is this accumulation here. There's 3 parcels. It's marked on this as subdivision, Comp Sale D. I sold 78 partially developed lots that are unrecorded. They weren't recorded. They were unrecorded. So it's vacant land where I've processed the map, submitted to the city, paid city fees, put the storm line in, put all the sewer line in. In fact, when I put the storm line in, I want to point out, I put about a third of a mile in. I'm not only just in the development, I had to connect to this ponding basin clear over here. That's what converted this to that's what converted this to an overflow pond instead of a temp pond that the whole area that we depended on every day. Now this is overflow. So, in other words, I sold a partially developed subdivision that had not had unrecorded lots. What we would do is we would finish the subdivision and then try to record the lots at the end and put up, because we're a small guy, we would have to bond for only the improvements that we did not have installed. So we basically fell to our knees through that process. In 2010, we stopped, and so we had to sell it partially completed. Okay? It's 19 acres, sold it for $1.6 million. I think the county would like to use that as a comparable sale, but it's not raw land. It's been graded, streets have been cut, all the sewer has been in, all the main sewer that goes into the individual subdivision to the individual lots and connected to the main line, and the complete backbone for the storm line in, plus fees paid to the Edison, fees paid to the water district, and fees paid to the city. So it's not, plus all the engineering completely done. So it's not, vacant land waiting for something to be done. It's in the process. So that concludes our comparable sales, but that's what happened. So I either had to, you can say, well, that didn't happen in 2009. I would have sold it in 2009 or 2010 or 2011 if I had an opportunity. And I made the county aware. Where's the letter that we got back from Steve Wise? Where is that? What exhibit is that?
Exhibit.
Often they tell me what they can't do.
Page 14.
Often they tell me what they can't do. I understand that. They have rules. But common sense is, if you sold it in 2012, what was the value? Did the value was higher in 2009? Was the value higher in 2010? So I completed the sale at Ben Maddox, this sale, wrote to the county assessor's office, attention to Steve Wise, on another problem that I had in Tulare. And I represented...
where is the location in Tulare?
On the west and Amelia, I think it is. Okay, it was a combination of 19 finished lots and raw land that would be for RM2 and R1. Some improvements in. Okay, like there was the 19 that were developed were in the back, so there were some lines that were brought in that would service the other areas. But here's what happened: I had this sale. The value of the property in Tulare. We're all searching for other comparable sales. They're not to be had. And so I share with Steve, look, we sold this property in Visalia. It was RM2, RM1. I suggested to him that raw land was about I was selling for $18,000 an acre, and I thought there were other examples, and finished lots for $14,000. Their calculation over there was like $1.5 million. And there was some debt on it, and we moved it. It was also deeded in lieu of foreclosure. And in order to get the map recorded, we put it into Mark Hoffman's name, which kind of made it look like Mark was buying it because the investors wouldn't let him have it without having some debt on it. They put $1.5 million debt on it, down from $3 million, by the way. And so the assessor's office logically looked at that and said, well, it must be worth $1.5 million. But Mark didn't buy it. He was also a debtor and received the property in foreclosure. So I made them aware of the circumstances and showed them what I did in River Run Ranch, which is on this back side here, and the 10 or so parcels, and they wrote this letter back to me. Now, I've reviewed the subdivision land sales during 2009 calendar year and was able to find some comparables that support your opinion of value of finished lots as well as acreage properties. According to your September email, those values were $14,000 for finished lot and $18,000 per acre. Because there is a pending segregation on APM 168-330-017, I plan to correct the supplemental bills for 319-10, change of ownership, and then issue corrected bills reflecting the reduction in value under the 20 newly developed parcel numbers. There were actually 19 parcel numbers. There were 19 finished lots. Be advised that the corrected 211, 212, 212, and 213 bills will reflect the small inflation increases, not to exceed 2%, as allowed by the Prop 13. But those small increases will be based on the agreed upon reduced base year. That's what we're trying to do here, ladies and gentlemen. We're trying to get this deed in lieu that I gave to George Coggleton and his group. I not only saddled the deed and asked for forgiveness of the debt, I hadn't paid the taxes that were current then. I'm really a villain here. but it is what it is. And I then worked similar problems around. I've never had this problem with the assessor's office. We've always been able to come to values. They did reclock Tulare at roughly 1/3. The $1,000,005 something went down to $535, I think. So they agreed with us. I think the K Road East section, those 3 parcels, have little value because they're being held for the ponding basin. The letter from the city indicates that they have a recorded easement on the pond area, and we're holding. Those other 3 parcels are holding roughly 30,000 yards to backfill it. The problem on the west, or the acreage on the west, which is we call K Road West, those are 2 parcels, roughly 11 acres. When we develop that property, it's not gross equals net like their comp sale one, with 6.94 acres that was 4.65. This is 11 acres that will probably end up being 9 when we put the road in. We got to back off. There's a power line right there on a big power line. It costs probably $35,000 a pole to move. So we have to back off that power line to start our subdivision. We can't, the 11 acres that's there, we can't develop all. That's my point. So.
Okay, so in summary, is there any other evidence that you want to present to us?
No.
Or can we, again, we're going to come back to you
Fair enough.
if you would like to ask questions of the assessor, but I'd like to hear from the assessor if I could.
I would too.
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, may I ask a couple clarifying
Sure.
questions? The information that got to the board this morning on the docket and the individual applications, on each of the 3 of the 4 parcels on the east side, because you didn't appeal on the one that's actually the ponding basin, I have an application that's a supplemental for 2009, 2010, a supplemental for 2010, 2011, and the regular for 2012. So that's true for each of those 3 parcels. But as I have gone through the applications this morning, on the west side, the only information that we got was the eastern of those 2 west parcels. We have the 2009, 2010 supplemental, but no application in our materials for 2010, 2011, and the regular. And then I have no supplemental assessment applications at all on the western parcel, just the regular for 2012.
Yeah, that is true. You guys didn't file applications on every single supplemental bill that was issued. But when the assessor's office took this under consideration, we operated under the assumption that the applicant was, in fact, trying to appeal all of those supplemental assessments. And as you'll see by our position after we present, it hasn't changed our opinion.
Okay. But that's correct in terms of the applications?
Yes,
it's not just
correct.
the materials that got to the board this morning? Okay.
No, they did not, in fact, file on all of the particular supplemental assessments for all of the parcels.
They are all at issue for January 1st, 2012. It's just the ones on the west we don't have.
Supplemental assessments on, so
we technically don't have jurisdiction over those.
Can you refile or come back next year?
No, I'm sorry,
can't.
it's too late.
Actually, I thought
you just
I
missed
had-
it on those.
When I filed on the 3 east, I think I did the same on the 2 APMs on the west, but
It didn't
for
get
some reason
to
it
us.
doesn't show up.
Yeah, it didn't get to us, so I don't.
The original.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at all those, but like you say,
If we need to,
you can confirm, but I will affirm to you that you did not file on all of these supplemental assessments.
to be honest,
if
it's
they
quite
got- if they got
confusing.
lost in the
5 of
clerk's
these
office.
things,
Oh,
and
it is very
supplementals,
confusing.
and it's
yeah.
the preliminaries, and
Yeah, and we do require individual applications on each one.
Right.
If we do need to do some kind of continuance for you to show that you filed it and it got lost in the clerk's office before it got to the assessor,
You have
if
copies
it
of
makes a
what you
difference, we
originally
can deal with
I have
that.
all copies of
filed.
those.
You don't
So
have
I'll
those
just-
here
So-
today?
No.
Okay. Something we could provide.
Yeah, we'll see where we are in
All the
terms of
injury occurred at the
potential for
same
needing
time.
it. Right,
Okay.
right. It's just that we may not be able to address the earlier ones.
I'd like to note for the record that Mr. Fowler left the room for about 3 minutes and came back in. So he's now back. We have a full panel, and we'd like to hear our presentation from the assessor.
Alrighty. We've gone through a summary of the case. Have we passed out our
Yeah,
our presentation?
I was going to say, you probably have a written version of
We
it.
do. And the cover page illustrates all of the various application numbers, additionally all the various parcel numbers and assessments that are being questioned, as well as the values that are on the roll and the applicant's opinion of value for the applications in question. So I'll give you a brief moment to review those. But essentially, as Mr. Fulbright indicated, the applications are in reference to two changes in ownership dates. The first one is December 22nd, 2009, and the second one was a correctory deed filed on July 2nd, 2010, and then also the regular assessment for the 2012-2013 tax year. So essentially, the preliminary change in ownership reports filed by the applicant indicated a total purchase price of roughly $1.5 million for the subject properties. After reviewing sales of similar properties occurring within a legally permissible time period, the appraiser determined that the indicated sales price was less than the current market value of the property. It was the appraiser actually indicated his opinion of value to be somewhat higher, but he felt by reconciling the market conditions, the site conditions, and those comparable sales, he felt strongly that a market value of $76,000 roughly per acre was indicative of the current market value of the property. The appraiser actually enrolled a lower value than what was indicated on the preliminary change in ownership report that was filed by the applicant. The applicant did request an informal review with the assessor's office in 2012. After reviewing his value conclusion, the appraiser notified the applicant that his opinion of value was unchanged and that his best recourse would be to file applications for changed assessment with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors, which he went ahead and did. So upon further review, the assessor maintains that the assessed values are a fair reflection of market value for the event dates under appeal. While a higher valuation of the subject property could be justified by the available comparable sales data, the assessor feels that a mutually equitable valuation was made. Therefore, the assessor has recommended that no changes be made to the assessments to the Assessment Appeals Board. So this is a brief overhead view, which was provided by Mr. Fulbright as well, so I won't go into too much detail. As you can see, the properties are located at the intersection of East K Road and Ben Maddox Way in Visalia. And then we've also highlighted the parcel that Mr. Fulbright still owns, which the ponding basin is located in. Here's a brief description as far as the site area for the subject properties in question. You can see that the properties range in size from roughly 2.1 acres to 6.3 acres. Alrighty. So the subject properties are zoned RM2, which is the multifamily residential zone. According to Title 17 of the City of Visalia, California Municipal Code, some permitted uses in the RM2 zone include but are not limited to. There's a list there, existing family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, up to 15 units per gross acre in the RM2 district and up to 29 in the RM3. But taking a look at those uses, it is the assessor's office's determination that the highest and best use of the property is low to medium density multifamily residential. The appraisal of real estate defines highest and best use as follows: the reasonably probable and legal use of vacant land or an improved property, which is physically possible, appropriately supported, financially feasible, and that results in the highest value. So with that definition in mind, as I said before, the assessor's office believes that the highest and best use of the subject properties is low to medium density multifamily residential. So what we have here, it'll probably be best to refer to the map that we've included in the presentation. But this is an aerial shot of the city of Visalia. This is the zoning map. As you can tell, A majority of it is highlighted in yellow, and that is the single-family residential district. The subject properties in question are actually located at the bottom right, but they are indicated by a dark brown color. And the point we wanted to make with this is it is actually very difficult to find many of the dark brown highlighted areas on the map. RM2 zone land is in very low supply in the city of Visalia. Per senior planner Brandon Smith with the City of Visalia Planning Department, 3.89% of parcels within the city limits of Visalia are zoned RM2. Among those, 3.89%, 6.89% are undeveloped. So that brings us to the overall percentage of undeveloped RM2 parcels in the city of Visalia to be 0.27%. So that just speaks to the low supply of low to medium of RM2 zone property in the city of Visalia. So let's move on to the valuation of the subject properties. As we stated before, there are 3 event dates that the assessor's office considered. In the back of the presentation, we've included a list of comparable sales that the appraiser used when he made his value conclusion. You can review those briefly. I'm not going to go into those by line item. They're highlighted exhibits A through D in the assessor's presentation. But we'll just go over the highlights for you. For the first event date in question, December 22nd, 2009, the comparative sales that the appraiser used to value the property indicated a market value per acre of $150,000, $355 to roughly $500,000 an acre. Consider that these are all unadjusted. The subject's being valued at $76,000 an acre, which is roughly half of what the market value would be. The market value per square foot indicated there is $3.45 to $11.59. The subject is being valued at $1.75 per square foot. Again, roughly half of the market range that's indicated by the comparative sales. And then the market value per unit, you're looking at roughly $10,000 to $33,000. And we have the subject valued at roughly $5,000 per unit. So taking a look at the second grid of sales for the July 2nd, 2010 event date, indicates a market value per acre of $66,667 to roughly $370,000. Again, we have the subject valued at $76,000 per acre. The market value per square foot is $1.53 to $8.39. Again, we have the subject valued at $1.75 per square foot. And then the market value per unit runs $7,000 to $23,000. Again, we have the subject valued at $5,000 per unit. And for the lien date, January 1st of 2012, the market data hasn't changed since the previous event date. Alrighty, so in summary, the assessor's office feels that the highest and best use was satisfied throughout our appraisal. We also used comps that were zoned RM2. And then the assessor's office really does feel that a mutual equitable valuation of the subject properties has been reached. We believe that we have reconciled the scarce supply of subdivision land with the highest and best use being considered for multifamily. We would agree with Mr. Fulbright that valuing properties like this is very difficult, but we feel that we took the site conditions, the market conditions at the time, and arrived at what we feel to be a mutually equitable valuation for the subject properties in question.
Okay. All of us on this panel have varying degrees of expertise, but this particular area is an area that I work in. And just so that we have disclosure, I believe that I had a listing on a piece of property on Houston Avenue, just west of the school, and it was RM2. And I believe that my listing continued through these dates. Mm-hmm. So I have some knowledge there. I also worked on a parcel there was roughly 207 finished lots in Tulare, just west of the subject property that you're referring to. So I just want to make that clarification. I don't think that Mr. Fulbright we've ever met. We may have talked on the phone once, and I don't remember that specifically. I don't know the applicant at all, but I have worked on some areas that are real close to the parcels we're talking about. So in saying that, I just wanted to bring that out, and I'm going to open it up.
I believe those 207 lots went for about $14,000 a lot, or maybe a little less. Do you know?
They were bought by a group that was involved with Fred Lacomacino, and it went for $2.5 million. And that had
Closer to 10,000 lot.
well, it actually had 3 finished homes and 3 homes that were used as demos. And the contention was that those demos were in such bad shape they might need to be demolished, but they did bring them back. I think that when you allocate the value of the finished homes out of it, it'd probably be right around $12,000 a finished lot.
When we wrote to Steve Weiss about that, we were right in front of that property. There's another parcel that's over on Pleasant that has another 200 lots, 100 finished and 100 in waiting, and it's some form of bankruptcy. Now,
I remember that one as well.
so but 400 lots right in that.
But I worked on it with clients, but I did not sell it. It was sold by others. Although, Tulare is a different market than Visalia. But during that period of time, I saw some comps on finished lots, but not partially finished or
Maybe
raw.
sell your listing for RM2?
No.
And did you have it listed at $76,000 an acre?
We had it listed at somewhere around $70,000. We reduced the price down to $50,000 an acre, subsequently brought it back up and did not sell it.
We don't have a problem, by the way. Corey has spent a long time on the zoning and the value of that zoning. We don't contend, it's RM2. The number of doors that we had approved was 135 doors for both sides. If you took us $5,000 a unit, that'd be $735. I don't think we're in the market where we're selling things by the door. When the market's good, we do.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen very much difference in value between our 1/6 property being sold. There's 3,000 finished lots in the city of Visalia. So there's not really much need to buy undeveloped property and develop it. That completely controls the value of subdivision land and also RM2. There are some other RM2 lots that are finished in town. They're not selling for $105,000. They're not selling for $76,000. And you didn't sell yours for $50,000.
No.
I think we're missing some real life experience.
Well, basically, I wanted to disclose what my knowledge was in the marketplace, because this is what I do. But I want to leave it open to the other board members to ask some questions of both of you, and the assessor has a comment. Go ahead.
Well, we've spent a lot of time here tearing down any sales that we've brought up, but I would just like to point out that the applicant has not provided any pertinent or relevant comparable sales data that is allowed under state law. Mm-hmm. So I would even contend, I would question, have they met the burden of proof? We can, like I said, we would agree. I think we would all agree.
Are you relying on your comp sale, number one, at $105,000 being within the 90-day period of the actual transfer? How do you hang your hat on?
I'm hanging my hat on the fact that it is presumed that the assessor has done his job correctly. That is in state law, and we are defending the value that the assessor put on the roll. We are not actually presenting a value opinion at this point. We are standing on the valuation that was made when the assessments were made.
Okay. When they're getting some of their information off the deed in lieu of foreclosure that I gave back to George. Now, I'm a debtor. I'm concerned about getting full relief of the debt if I give up the property. So we did an estoppel that indicated $700,000 and whatever the other number. It added up to $1.5 million. I think they're taking that as it was sold, and that was the transfer. That's how much debt I have. That's how much I was trying to get out from under. It wasn't any kind of reflection of what's worth. It's worth somewhere between $35,000 and $47,000. I kind of think the Shannon Ranch example is pretty darn close. However, it's not reflected. I haven't heard the assessor tell us why the tax rolls today are 23,000. That'd be interesting. It happened 3 years ago.
That's not applicable to the applications in question.
It isn't a good question, though, is it? I like to be treated like Shannon Ranch instead of being treated like $76,000. And I'm going to have at least 2 acres or 3 acres off K Road. I talk like it's mine still. George deals with the K Road. It's not gross equals net. That example comp sale is 4.65 acres. It's been trimmed down from 6.94. It has more value. You take our 11 acres at K Road, we're going to end up out with 9 if we get that close. Now, the other side has quite a few improvements. It's closer to gross equals net. But you got 8 feet of dirt on it or a 20-foot hole. How do you have any value there?
I'd like to open it up to the other board members and have them ask questions, satisfy any questions they have.
I would like to ask, the extra dirt that is piled on the one parcel, the long parcel.
Piled on
Actually,
three of them.
it's on,
Well, the
most
three,
of it's
the three
on-
parcels that are kind of along,
Yes.
narrow parcels.
The actual pond straddles the property line on one of the ponds. And all the dirt that came out of there is on there, plus some extra dirt. Because once you dig a hole, it takes 1/3 more to go back in.
and it's all, the parcel just north of the ponding basin, which may have some of the ponding basin on it. That triangle piece, the dirt is on that as well as the one to the east of it.
All right.
Yeah.
It should be, what you're saying is that the parcel over to the right of the road there, all right, those 3 parcels there have extra dirt on them. Is that right?
6 to 8 feet high.
Huh?
Yes, spoils
Right.
that are 6 to 8 feet high.
Now,
So there, most all of this, and up in this area.
was that considered by the assessor valuation, that causes a problem?
Yeah, it is our position that was considered in the initial appraisal. I mean, if you look at the comparable sales that the appraiser used, and again, I want to clarify that we are defending the valuation that the assessor put on it. This is not me personally stating. The comparable sales that the appraiser used indicated a much higher value indicator. So it was his determination by reconciling in what, in his opinion, was a down market, the condition of the site as well as the location, that the purchase price that was indicated by the applicant on the P-Corps, so using all of the evidence that he was provided with, that was a fair valuation. So yes, he did consider the site conditions.
I feel like I'm arguing with somebody that's come up with that didn't come up with the opinion. Somebody else did, and he's here to
You are.
defend. Did you talk to the city of Visalia about that ponding basin?
I did.
Did they confirm
I did.
it's there and that they have the right to use it and we don't have the right to use it?
Essentially, what the city I spoke
There was
with.
a letter that we submitted. Would you have any problem with that? That's the one we got.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. I mean, you're getting a little contentious. I have no reason to argue with you. But I did perform my due diligence. I spoke with local MAI accredited appraisers who further agreed with my opinion of value. So the value that I offered was something that I did quite a bit of extensive research on. So I did speak with the city. They did say that they do not own the ponding basin. They also mentioned that after, as you said, it was connected to the drain on the other side once the development finished, that ponding basin would no longer be necessary.
We don't have anything to do with the timing.
Actually, I'd like to point out in the letter. The letter states that they may release the ponding basin after the pump station is put in. They don't say, which was very troubling to me, that they're saying maybe. It's not that it's definitely going to be released. So, but I'd also like to point out the assessor is saying, whoops, sorry, Donna. The assessor is saying 65,000 per acre on this, and they're saying 70 on this. I find whether 65 is correct or 70 is correct, whatever value there is, I see no difference between the value of this piece and the value of these 3 pieces.
Once you didn't have dirt in a hole there.
Yep.
Once it was developable.
Mr. McKinley, did you get your answer?
I think so. I'm ready for another one if you,
Okay, go right ahead.
all right. Tim, you said something to the effect that the ponding basin was not an issue.
said in effect that the ponding basin is not under appeal here. And so when Mr. Fulbright was advocating that the ponding basin had some pertinence here outside of the fill dirt, it does not. So drawing that into the argument.
The ponding basin is not being appealed.
That is correct.
All right.
I'll try to figure out how to do that later. I didn't realize it was,
Okay.
it's being currently assessed at 35,000 an acre.
I would
36, I think, 36,000 acre.
Yeah, but as I mentioned earlier, my notes indicated that we have,
Not
for,
70.
for those 3 parcels on the right, we have supplementals for 2009, 2010, supplementals for 2010, 2011, and regulars for 2012. Only for those 3 parcels. The parcel that actually has the ponding basin on it, which is the bottom left of those, there are no applications at all. That's what Mr. Kuckendorfer was
That's owned by
pointing
you,
out.
not by you. You own that property.
I own the pond.
Right.
And I want to go with him when he sells it. Or he wants me to go with him because his property isn't worth, it takes all 4
Has
of
to
them.
go all
You get what I'm saying? I should have filed with him. I didn't. You know, he's in Idaho. I'm over here. I'm trying to help him. I didn't realize I had a problem until I dug into this and did the research. I said, well, you know, mine's at 30, it's under 36, 35 and change. And it's 1.42 acres, it's $53,000 roughly. I think that's too high. I mean, how do you assess?
How much?
$53,000 for my hole.
Okay.
Okay, because it takes $100,000 to backfill it. I don't, you know, you may say that somebody else looked at this, but I mean, they haven't filled these holes. And they take your property and you can't use it. I get done every year. We have to disc it every year for $1,000. I mean, that whole corner.
Yes. Mr. Philbright, I'm trying to get through the
Yes, I
panel
understand.
here. See if, Glenn, you have any questions?
I have a question. On your comparable sales, you indicated that sale D was not recorded.
Sale D was recorded in terms of when it happened. It happened, by the way, July 31st, 2013. The part that wasn't recorded is it was actually for 78 lots, unrecorded lots. The difference here is it wasn't raw land. It actually was partially improved property sold for $1.6 million something. Do you have it, $1.648, something like that?
That was on,
Yeah. And so it was $1.648 million. The difference here is I sold 78 unrecorded lots that were partially completed. It's not just raw land with a map on it. There is a map on it, and the engineering was submitted to the city. Fees were paid to the city. They allowed us to start work. We graded the streets, graded the lots, put in the sewer for the whole subdivision, the complete backbone to the other ponding basin that's about a third of a mile away. That's why it's not apples for apples. It's not just vacant land. So if you take, it does come up to 19 acres, and we sold it for $1.6 million. So we sold it, if you just take everything I just said to you and discount it, at roughly probably $80,000 an acre with the improvements in it. But it's $21,000 a lot. Similar property, same zone, right next door, we sold for $23,831. That was R1, and I'm trying to get the board to look
Your
at
comp between your sale A sold for $12,000 an acre. Is that correct?
That's right.
And
Actually,
that
can I
sold
clarify
in
from-
2012. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, but
Then you came back and gave us sale C that sold in 2013 at $23,000, almost doubled the value.
We improved it.
What makes you think that value will not continue to double?
When things get better, I think it will.
Mr.
That's
Fowler?
not where we've been or where we are.
Mr. Fowler, can I clarify
Believe
some of
it,
that for you?
Byron?
Yes.
Can I clarify a little of sale 1 for you? If I remember correctly, sale 1 was actually, Mr. Lawrence deeded in lieu of foreclosure this particular sale as well, and it wasn't actually a sale.
Okay.
So I believe that
That's incorrect.
accounts for the
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect?
That's incorrect.
well,
I can go and get the recording if it would help
Go
to
ahead.
clarify it, but
excuse me,
incorrect.
Mr. Chair, if I can make a comment, the 3 dates at issue here are December of 2009, July of 2010, and January of 2012. We shouldn't be considering anything later than March 31st, 2012.
This is all I have. And that's been our point of contention. You know, like we've said many times, this is very difficult property to value. But, you know, barring any evidence to the contrary that the assessment has been incorrectly made, we've been provided no relevant evidence to change the assessment.
I'm sorry, that's a legal requirement in answer to your question. We can't go past 90 days forward from the lien date,
From what date?
from the date
The
at
event date.
issue in the application. And the last date
So
at
when
issue.
we asked you to look at it, that's 1 year forward?
No, from the date of the event. So you have appealed the
And
value.
the event is what?
Under Prop
recording date of
13,
the
it has to
documents.
be something that triggers it or the regular January 1st lien date. The latest date at issue here is the regular January 1st, 2012 lien date, and so our deadline, we cannot consider anything that closed after March
I'm not sure how
31st,
that works.
2012.
I know that I have worked with the assessor's office before, been well treated, very fair. I don't know why we're not getting it this time, but I have gone back, and I've heard this very same argument. We can't go back before more than 3 years.
You can go before as long as you want. You just
I've heard
with
the argument
adjustments,
before,
but you
and
can't
we-
go forward more than 90 days. That's a legal requirement.
Of his date of his application?
No, of January 1st, of each of the events at issue here. We've
Well,
got December of 2009. For that value, you could go forward 3 months. For July of 2010, you could go forward 3 months. For January 2012, you can go forward 3 months. That's why our cutoff is for everything at issue here.
What happened on January of 2012?
That was the regular lien date for that year. So if you, the way the property tax system works is you take a snapshot every year, and we just arbitrarily picked January 1st. It used to be different dates.
I think the actual
And so
snapshot,
it's- so it's
December
going-
22nd,
So it's going forward for 3 months from that. It doesn't matter what the market did after March of 2012.
well, it didn't go up. 2009. In other words, it wasn't higher in 2009.
Don,
What are you basing that opinion on?
no, I understand what the rule is, but in the case of single-family sales, I'm sure even in the depressed market, there was plenty of sales that you know, in a 90-day period.
That you
Whether
could
it was,
look at.
whether it was January to March or April to June, there would have been comparable sales. So to look at RM2, bare land, and I can tell you, we tried to sell this property when we got it back in 2009. We didn't want to hold it. We wanted to get rid of it. We could not find anybody that would even give us any value. Now, because it's raw land, it's very difficult to see any comps in that 90-day period. And is it true that, and I agree with what you're saying, that because I read what Korea sent me, that for single-family sales, it's the 90-day period. Is that also true for raw land?
My understanding is that it's all valuations.
But it's very
And the
difficult.
assessor can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
The way it reads in the information for presenting, it said single-family.
Yeah,
Family
the sort of here's how to do a hearing kind of
Right.
stuff is aimed at the
I understand.
unsophisticated person who
I
doesn't
like-
understand
I like
how
to-
it works, so not like you guys, so.
Before Don gets back on here, the group that owns this, there's four of us, four or five that were involved in the property pre-Don. I'm almost 75 years old. Those other three are in their mid-80s. So no way did they want to sit and hold property for when the market comes back. We'd have been happy to sell it at any price in 2009 when Don gave it back to us. So I don't want anybody to get the opinion that we're warehousing this property so he can do, whether it's 2 years from now or 5 years from now when the market comes back, that he can do this project.
Just from my opinion, the dates are important. But in effect, basically, we don't operate in a bubble. We do know what the market is, but we're not experts necessarily in exactly what's going on in this market. That's why you're giving us this testimony. But I'd like to finish up with Mr. Fowler, and if you have any other questions.
I have another question. In 2009, what was your asking price on this property when you were trying to sell it prior to the deed in lieu of foreclosure?
We actually didn't even put a price on it. I talked to a number of realtors here in Visalia, and I had absolutely no interest.
You got the deed back, and how much was the deed for?
$1.5 million.
How much?
$1.5 million for both sides.
800.
Okay.
850,000 on this and 700,000 on these three combined.
Basically $1.5 million.
And you had it on the market at that price?
We actually did. We didn't even really have a.
Well, I'm talking to this gentleman here. You had sell it before. Deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Everything I had at the time was for sale. I owed more than it was worth. I owed probably over double what it was worth. And at that point, the economy fell off in roughly September. When the stock market went down in September 2008, I've stopped making payments in 2009. I'm in constant conversation with George. I said, George, we might want to look at maybe unloading it at some value that's less than the owed. They weren't prepared to accept less. I mean, listen, we kind of learn as we go through these kind of catastrophes, and we look back and say, yeah, I owed $1.5 million and I couldn't pay it, and it wasn't worth that. I basically take the same decision that KMC did when they gave it to the housing authority. It wasn't worth the $700,000 that they paid. $66,000 an acre with three houses on it. So they gave it back because that wasn't worth what it was, and it's difficult to negotiate. Let's mark this down to half with the same people, but that would have been better than what we did. But I don't know. We wouldn't have been able to do anything with it today either. If we were to sell it today, I would think we'd get somewhere between. I really do. I think it's improved. We get somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 an acre. We wouldn't be able to sell the east until that pile of dirt's dug on. But we might be able to sell the west. If there was any buyers now, I would bring him to him. And in fact, I've introduced him to different brokers and realtors, but it's difficult to sell. I just closed that escrow next door within a 9-iron shot for $23,000 an acre.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Not for me.
I'd like to point one more thing out. This letter that we got from the assessor's office that was for this very same problem. In other words, when a deed in lieu was given back and the value was set at $1.5 million, the story that we had in Tulare, I gave them the comp sales. The deed was in 2009. And what we were trying to get the assessor's office to do was to relook at it. That we probably were sloppy there too. The deed in lieu and the debt was confusing. Like our estoppel, $850,000 on this property and $700,000, sent the signal to the assessor's office, maybe it's not worth, I'll give them a break and cut it down by 30%. It wasn't worth 50% less. Okay, they didn't give us a break. It wasn't worth that. But this letter that we got back, I gave them sales in 2012 for a 2009 problem, which we say we can't do. But the words that they use, I think, are important. I have received subdivision land sales during the 2009 calendar year and was able to find some comparables that support your opinion of value for finished lots as well as acreage properties. By again, was $14,000 a lot, $18,000 property. Now, he doesn't tell me, this assessor doesn't tell me what he's using, but he says he found some in 2009 that he was relying on. He didn't necessarily rely on mine. He said he found some that supported what I'm trying to tell him happened in 2012. I'm asking the board to do that now. There are no sales that have been submitted here that are in that 90-day window.
Actually, I believe that.
Yeah, we have 3 pages of them.
Exhibit
Okay,
B
I
in
haven't
the
seen it.
packet.
Exhibit A through D.
Okay.
I would also point out how high those sales are. I mean, the assessor's office does understand that there was low demand at the time, but you can't explain all of these sales away as an anomaly.
What page was that?
It's the final 4 pages of your introduction.
Exhibit B and on.
It's A through D.
I think sale number 1 is good. 4.65 acres is a good one, but the other one has 3 houses on it, and they gave it back, and the other one is, supposedly we can't confirm it, $47,000, yet the tax roll reflects $23,000.
And if you
I don't know that it was that arm's length either, but
if you concede that sale 1 is a good sale, we came in at roughly 25 to 30% of what that per acre value was. So in my opinion, that is taking into consideration an inferior location as well as the condition of the site.
Okay, I'd like to hear, if we could, a summary of each of your positions. We'll let the assessor go first. Something comes up in his summary you would like to rebut, we'll go ahead and allow that.
Yeah, the assessor is standing by the original valuation that was made. Barring, we did go through the informal review process with the applicant. As you can tell, we've been in talks. But barring any evidence to the contrary, we still don't believe that any comparable sales have been presented that would warrant a reduction. It is the assessor's opinion that no changes be made to the assessment. We would concede it's a difficult valuation, but we are standing by the valuation that we made.
Applicant's summary, if you'd like to just give us a summary as to, I think that we've spent a lot of time on this. Just give us a brief summary, and I appreciate it.
Okay, we don't envy the task that the board has because of the limited sales and all the factors that having to do with infrastructure or lack thereof, cost of oversight, utilities, curbs, lights, all the issues that come into whether one comp is comparable to another comp or the property in question. As we mentioned, the temporary ponding basin, we don't know how many years that will still be there, and we feel that the property would have no more value than $18,000 an acre, which is sales that have been made right in the area. The current assessed value between $75,000 and $76,000 per acre, or the assessor's recommendation of $65,000 to $70,000 an acre on these three parcels is extremely overvalued. We wouldn't have any objection to assessing the market value for the two parcels on the west at, say, $35,000 to $40,000 an acre. But again, the question is, do these even have any value? And us, as the property owners paying high taxes, should we even consider just walking away from the property? Okay. Again,
so you're saying that you'd be on the west. You live with somewhere between 35 and
40,000 an acre.
Okay, and on the
east, 18.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything. I don't know what the value is for land that you can't use, and you're being taxed on somewhere between zero. He's willing to accept $18,000. The other side of the property is not that much different than what Shannon Ranches is, $45,000. I think we'd have trouble selling it for that. I think you'd have trouble justifying anything north of $35,000. I just sold some for $23,000. Add the premium that is represented in the sale and that's about where you are. And that's real life. I don't know. I'm not contentious. I've just lived it.
I don't know that anything is new come out of your summary, but assessor doesn't have
we don't have any
comment.
response to that. We just, to Mr. Fowler's question, we just have evidence of the deed in lieu foreclosure, if you'd like to see that.
Of my sale for $12,000?
That's the sale one, yeah.
Yes. I own the property as Task Force Partners.
Uh-huh.
I owed Richard Clausen and a couple other people. Richard had bought the note. Richard asked me to sell it to somebody that he had, which was Blaine Property. Blaine Property did not have a deed of trust on that property. Blaine lives next door. Richard, being a note holder, asked me to sell it. He had been in contact with Blaine. That's not a deed. That's a sale that is next door.
Blaine Partners deeded the property to you in June of 2001.
I bought it from Blaine for $39,000 or $40,000 an acre.
Okay. And
I bought it for $39,000.
Now, this is additional information that we're getting here.
yeah, well, Chairman Fowler brought up the issue, and he was asking for evidence, and this is just what we were referring to.
You're indicating that was sold a deed in lieu and not a sale. In other words, that I gave that property up as a deed in lieu for $12,000, and that's incorrect. I sold it to Blaine. I bought it from Blaine for $39,000, maybe $42,000 several years ago, 2001. But I ended up selling it to him later for $12,000. It's a good job for him.
Would you like a copy of the analysis?
Yes.
But it wasn't
sold. Why did you file a deed in lieu of foreclosure if you sold it to him?
I didn't file a deed in lieu.
What is this deed here that you have?
This is an ownership history showing how it went from Blaine to.
Yeah,
back.
all we're saying is it went
wanna see
from
the
Blaine to
ownership
Castlewood and then went from
Okay,
Castlewood to Blaine.
could we get a copy of that then, to the board?
Does it say on that deed that there's a deed to it? Because,
I
yeah.
think the most important part about this particular deed is it's not pertinent because it's outside of the 90 days for the events that we're talking about. So while this is wonderful information to be helpful in maybe analyzing the sales submitted by the applicant, it's not applicable because if you can't consider the sales, this doesn't matter.
Mr. Fowler, you still want a copy of it? Yes. Okay.
We're going to have to make copies.
Yeah, if you have Kyria.
Barbara,
Yes, sir.
isn't it the technical definition a change in ownership, not just a sale?
Copies?
Change in ownership.
That's my understanding, that for Prop 13, and the assessor probably knows this better than I do and can confirm it, but my understanding is that the assessable event in California post Prop 13 is the change in ownership or the lien, or the regular yearly lien date for the 2% purposes.
Yeah, but I thought that you could reassess on the change of ownership. It didn't have to be a sale, it could be a gift, it could be a
Mr. McKinley,
inheritance.
that is correct. Your assumption is correct. It can either involve money or just ownership. But
So what I'm saying is that the fact that one party here is saying that deed doesn't count because it wasn't a sale is irrelevant. There was, in fact, a change of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. The clerk is getting that document copied.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be back shortly. Can we go ahead and discuss this amongst the board?
Sure, if you guys want to go ahead. I mean, the recording's still going, so the
Okay,
fact that the
very good.
clerk is absent doesn't affect the
So
recording.
what is it that the board would like to do? We'd like to take this under advisement and take a look at all of the evidence that's been presented, or do we want to rule at this point?
I prefer to take it under advisement, just to.
Let's take it under advisement.
I agree.
Some other document, I think we want to review.
Okay.
Some things we want to review on this before we make a final decision.
Very good. So we're going to go ahead and take this under advisement in closed session, get an answer back to you in 60 days, and we'll proceed from there.
Appreciate your efforts on this.
On behalf of myself and all the owners of the property, we want to thank the board for their time and consideration today. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay, that takes care of agenda item number 19 and 20. Going back to the,
Mr. Chairman, could we take a short break?
yes. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. 2013, back in session. Looking at the agenda, there is no one else here that is going to be participating in hearing?
that is correct, Mr.
All the applicants are gone. Okay? And procedurally, going back to agenda item number 2, BJ's Express Market, refresh my memory as to what's going on there?
We're done with that one.
That was the gas station.
That was
But we have we,
You voted earlier in the meeting to uphold the assessor's valuation,
okay?
but the new values that they presented. And same with number 3, you've already voted on that one, so that one's done.
Right. Okay. Then agenda item number 4, have we taken any formal action to deny
No,
that
sir.
for non-appearance?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do the non-appearances. We should maybe do the withdrawals first. Makes probably no difference.
Can we do the non-appearances first?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
My understanding is the non-appearances are 4, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, 23. Is that correct?
correct.
I have withdrawal for 6, 7, And all the rest that are highlighted on our updated agenda.
Let's take a motion.
Okay.
Then do I hear a motion for the denied for non-appearance?
I move that.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. Do you want?
No, go ahead.
Oh, that, I move that we, that agenda items number 4, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, 23 be denied for non-appearance.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Then going to the withdrawals and the withdrawal calendar. Does everybody have the current withdrawal calendar? Okay. Do I hear a motion for those items that are withdrawn, indicated as withdrawn, and the additional ones as being withdrawn, plus the withdrawal calendar?
Glenn, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that withdrawals 5, 8, 9, 11, 17, and 18 be accepted.
Okay, do I hear a second? Plus the withdrawal?
Withdrawal calendar.
Plus the withdrawal calendar. Okay.
I'll
Do I hear a
second that, yes.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, is there any other items that we have missed,
For open session,
other than
no.
the closed session?
Yeah, for open session, I believe we're there. Madam Clerk, do you agree? Yes, okay. We seem to have covered everything.
Okay.
Items 21, 22, and 23, have we?
We included those in the non-appearance.
Okay.
And the withdrawal calendar, okay. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board from the assessor? From staff, members? Okay, the Assessment Appeals Board for Tulare County for December 16th, 2013 is now closed, and we'll be holding our closed session for those items that are relevant.
Actually, we listed Century because we weren't sure whether the board was going to take it under advisement or not. Since that one has been voted on, the only one that we'll be considering in closed session is the fruit patch.
And the one
Oh,
that
and
we
the new
just-
one from today.
And the new one we
Yes.
just had today.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
First.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Glenn.
Merry Christmas, guys.
And Merry Christmas.
County office is closed.
The county offices are, the county has an official holiday all day on Christmas Eve, as well as Christmas Day.
Oh, both, huh?
Yeah. I don't know when that got started or why it preceded.
How does that
why
happen when it falls on the
preceded me.
weekend?
The way it works when we have a Saturday holiday, because part of the county works half-days on Fridays, there is no holiday on a Saturday holiday. There is an extra 8 hours of vacation that is added to your balance. So, if you take the Friday as the holiday, then you use 4 of those vacation hours, or 8 of those vacation hours, depending on whether you're half-day person or a full-day person. Our office is half-day, so when we have a Saturday holiday, then we take 4 hours off on the Friday. When we have a Sunday holiday, then it goes over to Monday.
Push it
So
to
I'm
be
not
closed
sure,
that Monday.
I'm not sure how we haven't had a Christmas Day on a Monday since I've been here. I'm not sure how it works where you have 2 consecutive holidays on Sunday and Monday.
Right.
So I don't know if they give you an extra 8 hours on the Sunday and then you get Monday off and have to come back on Tuesday would be my guess. But it hasn't come up, so I haven't looked at the policy for it.
Yeah.
It's always Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving, so,
Right.
and none of the other holidays are consecutive.
Right. Huh.
I'll have to ask. I'll ask Greenbow how they do it when
curious.
Christmas Day is a Monday.
I was concerned when I saw the calendar that we had 22.
I know, me too. I saw
22
all of
items.
those, and
I
it's
said,
like,
"This is
oh
in
my
December?"
goodness, confirmed hearings. We could be here till
Yeah.
midnight.
They have the ability of saving them all up to the December meeting and then popping them all out at one time. But
Well,
that didn't happen.
we're in the 2012, so we're not doing bad for.
And the number of applications dropped like a rock.
So see, now you can go out and recruit a 5th person and tell them it won't be very hard. It's not time consuming at all. It's only a whole morning.
You know,
at least.
overall, and here again, I'm just tooting our horn, this is a pretty good board.
You
Basically,
have done
good,
very well.
well-experienced, couple of CPAs, appraiser, real estate broker, and then whatever I am. And a good attorney, a real good attorney. One that's
that would be a nice
about
balance.
85
yes.
years old, crusty, and very, very hard to deal with. That'd be perfect.
Well, go find us one. You should know some of those people.
So, okay, going
But
back
actually,
to again.
no. Semi-seriously, we're not getting random members of the public applying, and I don't know what. I assume Supervisor Worthley has his antenna out on finding somebody, but he hasn't succeeded. So, to the extent that you guys can recruit, it would be really helpful, because we all know, it's hard on us when we only have 4.
Yeah. Well, going back to the cases, we're down to Fruit Patch and George
Congleton.
Crumbleton. And which one do you want to take first?
Fruit Patch is the only one I'm on, so.
Okay. You have a choice? Okay, let's do Fruit Patch first. And basically on this one, I am almost as confused before the hearing as I am after. I don't know, I just have a feeling that they haven't presented the case very well, but I think that there is probably some latitude on value, but I can't put my finger on any evidence that points me in that direction. That's the problem.
Go ahead.
Contrary to what Barbara said, I did work on this at home. And,
I didn't say anything.
I know I do remember something.
That was Mr. Ozunian who said he doesn't look at stuff at home. And I'm sorry, it didn't get on the packet and it's not in my notes. Curia, would you? Oh wait, okay, I do have it in a separate note.
I kind of echo your thoughts, George.
Ozunian, McKinley, and Morris are the voting members on this one.
I remember, seeing parts of it. I think, well, gee, this is cleared up, and then I can read another part. Now it's not cleared up. The idea of economic obsolescence is really hard for me to get my arm around, because I think that the overriding rule is still fair cash value. And so what you're saying is that this obsolescence has to reduce the fair cash value. The only one thing I came out of it, I'm sure of, that in my own feeling, is that they put on a lot of equipment, almost $1 million worth of equipment in 2012. And I'm sure as heck not going to reduce that for 35% for economic obsolescence. When they put it, they obviously knew it was of value at that time. So I think at least to that extent, I'm sure that they should not be allowed any economic obsolescence. And
what was that additional equipment designed to do?
Citrus.
I have no idea, but
Citrus.
It was citrus.
It was
Citrus.
citrus.
Yes.
So in effect,
They were
basically,
trying
the
to-
argument is that if they want to go after the citrus business, they ought to be assessed the value of what they put into that endeavor.
Then the question that brings up is, did the income of, and did the income of the business, which is the top part of that formula on the thing, did that go down because they changed their emphasis from stone fruit to citrus? Yeah. And I don't know an answer. I'm just telling you that it's a question that sits in my mind. The other thing that I read in this thing is that it doesn't make any difference whether they had a net profit or not. The only thing that makes a difference is the utilization of the equipment. So it doesn't, if their operation went to a net loss or didn't, if the equipment could still run at a percentage of its production, then that you don't get that, what's the penalty called? Anyway, it's a penalty for not the economic obsolescence.
Like
Yeah.
a hobby loss.
Well, it's got a name in here.
The adjustment.
Yeah, the adjustment, yeah. It's a bureaucrat word. In utility.
What's that?
In
In
utility.
utility, yeah.
So, I'm open to hearing any of
Well, in effect, basically, you hit the nail on the head in the sense that other than the money that they put into the citrus line, is this a going concern? Or is it not a going concern, and therefore should be valued as a pile of parts? Pile of parts, like the airplane, remember?
Yeah, right, okay,
The one
yeah.
that couldn't fly? Okay, so they have been continuing to move on this, trying to convince themselves that this is an economic, there may be some economic obsolescence, but their emphasis is that this is a going concern. It's not a hobby loss.
Yeah, and it's the old rule, you should never tell anybody anything, but what they put in their website is very convicting from the standpoint that says, hey, we're the best and we're going fine and we've gone into all kinds of good environmental intent and so forth.
Was that written by Madoff?
Huh? Well, it could have been, yeah. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
anyway, I'm still honestly and truly confused by.
Yeah, the idea of economic obsolescence is this is still perfectly good stuff, but nobody wants it.
Right, but let me iterate something for you. It's not obsolete, and neither is the building or things. If you have a buyer that is in that business, in other words, it's another citrus packing house, that has a heck of a aesthetic value to them, not only the building, but
They'd
the
have to
equipment.
change their whole line. That was what the argument was, is that their line was so specific to stone fruit, they couldn't run citrus through it without spending money.
Didn't they spend this money on updating into a citrus equipment?
That's exactly what,
Yeah. I thought this money, but maybe I misunderstood it. They were changing from stone fruit into the citrus
to
thing,
bail
and
out
they had acquired
something.
the required equipment in order to do this. Well, in doing so, they now have made it attractive to a buyer. I've heard through the grapevine, and I'm not going to put anything in it, this may have been sold to Porterville Citrus. I'm not saying it has.
Yeah.
I have no thing to know about it.
You know,
But you see the value is based upon somebody in the business, the citrus business, acquiring that property because of that equipment.
right. Lance?
Yeah, I've struggled as well with, as you all have, in reviewing this. The argument that the county has that they are profitable, I don't agree with. I don't think after reviewing the full tax returns and seeing that net operating losses have been generated time after time. Now, how much that has to do with intercompany parent loans and interest, there's amortization and depreciation and interest that is being potentially charged by the parent company. That may be part of it too, but I struggle more than anything as well to see, is it truly economic obsolescence if it falls under that guideline? That is, to me, as you mentioned, it's hard to fit. Yes, there's a permanent, and the rules say it doesn't have to be permanent, but it's not convincing enough to me to know that a permanent decline has happened or a decline has happened, and how do you determine that?
And mine. Well, actually, we need to turn them all on because of the vote.
Yeah, mine's on.
We've got, I believe, 2 different panels, so,
We won't have to do a
Congo,
food pantry. We won't have to do a vote, though, right?
no, we hadn't announced any decision in Fruit Patch, so we need to vote on that one. So, no, we don't because it's still
Right.
tentative.
Right.
Yeah, so
Just-
no vote on Fruit Patch. So it's just the today's vote then. So it was Zinni and Morrison Fowler on the second one.
So it's just
That we're actually
agenda
gonna
item
vote-
number 19.
That we're actually going to vote.
Right.
So are we on? Yes. Okay.
Okay. The Assessment Appeals Board for December 16th, 2013 is now back in session from closed session. Regarding agenda item number 19 and 20, that is George and Patricia Congleton.
Congleton, I believe.
Yes. The board has come to the conclusion that we are siding with the assessor in that case. Do I hear a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we side with the assessor.
I'll second it.
and we have, and I agree, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
And so, Madam Clerk, for purposes of the report to the tax collector, it's no change in the assessed value.
Okay, and regarding the agenda of Fruit Patch?
Yes, we're announcing a tentative decision, so since it's only tentative, there's no formal vote. Put my notes away, so let me get those back out. The board tentatively agrees with the economic obsolescence argument, but only on the stone fruit part. So we're going to reopen the hearing, and that will tentatively be on January 27th, to have the applicant show us how much is stone fruit only, because there will be no reduction on anything useful for the citrus. So office, forklifts, cold storage, things that carry over from the stone fruit, and of course the specific items for the citrus. And I will advise the parties of that in a letter.
Okay, do we need to vote on that tentative?
No,
Okay.
it's still tentative, so there's nothing for the board to vote on.
Hearing no other issues in closed session, our closed session meeting for December 16th, 2013, the Assessment Appeals Board of Tulare County is now adjourned.
You know, we would have been here until next Thursday if all